under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Locke with the invocation.
We come to you tonight asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussions, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our communities. Amen.
Amen. Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move for the approval of this evening's agenda.
Been moved and seconded to approve this evening's agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Is there anybody? I don't know, we're getting somebody else's voices coming through again. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Is there anybody else that would like to address the board on anything on the agenda this evening? Okay, that portion will be closed. Correspondence from or reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like a lot of my peers here, this was not the first meeting I was at today. Before this meeting, I was at Butamore Elementary School for a public involvement meeting regarding the 441 Tri-County project. It sounds like construction will be getting underway sooner than later, which is a breath of, or a sigh of relief rather, for a lot of people from that area. I did gather an abundance of comment forms. So if anybody would like a comment form, if they have any questions or concerns regarding that project and they would like to fill one of these out, I would certainly get it back to the DOT before May 27th, which is the date that they'll be loading these. But I highly recommend that we all stay in tune to what's going on. If you've seen the Green Bay construction project, there's cranes all over the place, 30, 35 at a time. This is really going to be an incredible project. Also, and I think bigger news, maybe more relevant to what we just did with the invocation here tonight, the Supreme Court today did hold up sectarian prayer in public governmental meetings. And most notably, the gentleman, Justice Kennedy, who wrote the decision, he said that, and I quote, "Prayer is meant to lend gravity to the occasion and reflect values long part of the nation's heritage. Prayer that is solemn and respectful in tone, that invites lawmakers to reflect upon shared ideals and common ends before they embark on the fractious business of governing, serves that legitimate function." And I would certainly agree that Justice Kennedy understood the remarks made by one Benjamin Franklin before a heavily divided constitutional convention in 1787, where Franklin said, "In this situation of this assembly, groping as it were in the dark to find political truth, and scarce able to distinguish it when presented to us, how has it happened, sir, that we have not hitherto once thought of humbly applying to the beginning of the contest with Great Britain, when we were sensible of danger, we had daily prayer in this room for the divine protection. Our prayers, sir, were heard, and they were graciously answered. I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, and I also believe that, without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. I therefore beg leave to move that, henceforth, prayers imploring the assistance of heaven and its blessings on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business, and that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service. I would argue today, Mr. Chairman, that in God we still trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. What I'd like to do is report on the scholarship program. This year we got 27 essays from the various schools, which is the highest we've had in the last 5 years. 9 different schools submitted applications or essays, and of those we had 7 schools in which got awards. Those were Menasha got 3, Neenah got 1, Oshkosh North got 1, Oshkosh West got 2, St. Mary Central got 1, and Xavier got 1. I should note that we had, of course, the Xavier one, which got an essay win. We had 2 from outside Winnebago County, and reminding the group that anyone that lives within Winnebago County is eligible no matter where they go to high school. One other comment that we got from the professors at UW Fox was these were probably some of the best essays that they had ever seen. So I think that the program is moving along well. It got Sarah Thompson of the Extension Group followed up very well on this, and I think that the results show that. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday at the Human Service meeting, we're going to send a letter to the Health Service on our dissatisfaction about the state and federal giving exuberant amount of money for rent for the sexual predators. For an example, some places they've given like $2,200 a month for rent for a person. In over 30 months, it came out to roughly $66,000. So anyway, we had a good discussion on it, and Dr. Topol is going to send a letter stating our dissatisfaction, and they should come down to the normal price for us taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. The clerk with some correspondence. She has no correspondence. I just wanted to remind the board that our county board tour will be Monday the 19th. So I hope you can all attend. You should let the clerk's office will be sending something out if you haven't received it already, if you're coming or not. So, but I hope you can all come. So at this time, I would like to ask Linda Coleman, the Emergency Management Director, to come up, and she'll give us an overview on the spring and summer weather from Emergency Management.
Good evening, everyone. I think it was last September that I was here and we discussed severe weather in Winnebago County and what we use for warning procedures and our siren activation guideline. And Mr. Albrecht called me last week and said, hey, would you be willing to do another presentation? And I said, absolutely. The more time that I have with you to explain what our office does and our procedures, I think the better advocates you will be for emergency management with your own constituents. So I appreciate the time, Mr. Albrecht. Again, last time we went through siren activation guidelines, when they sound here in Winnebago County, who can activate the sirens, and some of our other weather activation tools that we use. One thing I did not tell you last time is that I'm sure you all know we're a home rule state, but not all counties have outdoor tornado warning sirens. And our policies are not all consistent. Some counties only sound their sirens when the National Weather Service issues a tornado warning. Our county does that on top of other criteria, which is winds in excess of 90 miles per hour. If we have trained spotters spot a tornado before the National Weather Service picks it up on radar. And at Bernie, my deputies, in my discretion, we can sound the sirens. Some counties also sound them for severe thunderstorms. And in other counties, the individual communities are responsible for their sirens. Town of Harrison in Outagamie County, or Calumet County, sounds their own sirens. They manage their own sirens. So here in Winnebago County, my office is charged with that duty, and we take it very seriously. And when there is severe weather in the area, we are definitely working to be on top of it so that we can protect our citizens. Who do we rely on for severe weather information? The Storm Prediction Center issues watches in Winnebago County. The National Weather Service usually issues the warnings. Ham radio operators, Skywarn operators, they're volunteers that go out through all over the county and tell us what they see in the skies. We get severe weather reports from adjacent counties. Radar we're very dependent on radar. We are not meteorologists. We aren't trained. We do the best we can to interpret radar, but we depend on the professionals, which is the National Weather Service. They have their degrees and master's degrees in meteorology, and that's who we depend on. We do get citizen reports. I can tell you that the majority of them are false reports. There are a lot of clouds that resemble tornado or funnel clouds, so we definitely need that verification before we will sound the siren. And then other trained weather spotters we use as law enforcement officers and fire personnel. Volunteer and full-time departments do weather spotting for us. For severe weather,
There's people talking, and I can hear it coming over.
For severe weather and pre-notification, the National Weather Service will sometimes issue an email to our office to kind of give us a heads up on, hey, you have some severe weather coming later this week. This one I received last night, matter of fact, what we can expect. Isolated severe thunderstorms with large hail are expected over mainly central and east central Wisconsin on Wednesday, with the threat likely shifting into northern Wisconsin Wednesday night. There is a potential for higher and severe event with large hail, damaging winds, and isolated tornadoes across the forecast area on Thursday afternoon and early evening. The greatest threat of tornadoes appears to be over central Wisconsin and the western Fox Valley between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. The email went on with some additional details, but what our office does then is we send this out or fan this out to about 50 different agencies, to include hospitals, fire departments, schools, anybody in the first responder agency, so that they can adequately staff their agencies and be better prepared if something does strike. I did write back to the National Weather Service and I said, what is the Western Fox Valley? And he said, good question, I'll get back to you with a map. I haven't received it yet, so still trying to figure that one out. Severe weather outlook for 2014. Well, I talked to the National Weather Service, and the latest information they indicate is temperatures and precipitation will be close to a typical summer. Predictions are for average year of severe weather. Well, what is average in Winnebago County? Well, Wisconsin averages 23 tornadoes annually. In 2013, there were 16 tornadoes that touched down in Wisconsin, including 6 on August 6th and 7th of last year to the north of us. In 2011, 38 tornadoes in Wisconsin were confirmed, with the 4th highest number on record. And in 2010, Wisconsin had 46 tornadoes, which was the 2nd greatest yearly number on record. Here are some additional stats just for Winnebago County, and they've started keeping records on this since 1982. But we've had severe thunderstorms in Winnebago County with winds in excess of 75 miles per hour 199 times, 1 death and 6 injuries. And we've had 20 tornadoes in Winnebago County since 1982 with 1 death and 10 injuries. So we are not exempt from any of the severe weather in the state. It is always possible here. And we do the best we can to get our citizens prepared, to not rely on one single notification method. Again, outdoor tornado sirens are for people who are at outdoor events. They are not intended to wake you up in the middle of the night. We sell NOAA weather radios. There's a new alert that is coming out, and it's called, well, it's already out. It's the Wireless Emergency Alert. If you have a cell phone since about June of 2012, if it's that new, you will automatically get a text message from the federal government telling you you are in a tornado warning area. You can be driving in Florida, you can be driving in Michigan. It'll bounce off a cell tower wherever the tornado warning is issued, and it'll hit your cell phone, so you will be aware of what is going on through whatever community you're driving through. I have not received one of those yet, and I don't know if any of you have. Doug Guerin from the Public Health Department called me, and he was driving through another state, and he had the tornado warning go off his phone, and he asked me a little bit about it, and I said, well, this is the new federal program. So if you have a cell phone since 2012, you will get an alert. It'll be a different tone on your phone. Just a little bit about winter. The average temperature for the winter that we just survived was 10.6 degrees. That was our average temperature, which is 8.8 degrees below normal. This winter will go down as in the record books as the second coldest winter on record, going back to 1886. I probably don't have to tell any of you that. You probably noticed it as much as I did. Many of our communities experienced some issues with water main breaks. The state of Wisconsin asked our office to contact the communities within Winnebago County to find out how much they had in damages. And we had approximately $1 million that were uninsured costs to some of our municipalities. We submitted those costs to the state of Wisconsin along with many of the other counties, and it looks like we qualify for possible federal assistance to help reimburse some of the counties. This information will be passed on to FEMA. They will make that determination if we do qualify, and hopefully we'll recoup some of those costs. And that is all I have today. I just want to reiterate, if you ever have any questions, please don't ever be afraid to call me, Bernie, Sue Verway from my office. We will answer any questions you have that any of your constituents have. Please come to us, because that's what we're here for, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
So now do you stay up? They say that we're going to have severe weather Wednesday or Thursday or something. I just saw, so do you stay up all night long now?
Sometimes.
Sure that you're gonna...
The 911 center goes 24 hours, and they're not afraid to call. Actually, sometimes I think they take a little pleasure in calling me at 3 a.m. and say, hey, Linda. But yes, when we do have severe weather, if Bernie's in charge, he will stay up and monitor the weather. We do our best to get to the 911 center and monitor the weather prior to the storm arriving. Unfortunately, there are times that storms kind of develop out of nowhere. We don't get this advance notification from the National Weather Service, and we do our best to get down to the 911 center. We do have procedures in place, though, that if for some reason Bernie or I are not there to make the decision whether to sound the outdoor sirens, the lieutenant or sergeant on duty with the patrol division has the authority to make the decision on our behalf. If he or she is out on a call, the lead dispatcher will make that determination on whether to sound the sirens. So we do have a procedure in place if for some reason, we're a small office, we have 1 full-time, 2 part-time employees. We do our best to manage all the severe weather events, but in case that we aren't available, we do have that succession in place.
Supervisor Widener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How would we know if our cell phones have this ability? You said anything after 2012. How would we know that?
You might want to contact your cell phone provider. They should be able to tell you if it is receiving WIA alerts, wireless emergency alerts. Your cell phone provider,
Okay. Okay.
you'll want to contact them.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Farley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you elaborate a little bit on these radios that you referred to, what's available and what they cost?
The NOAA weather radios are available in our office. We've sold probably in the last 6 or 7 years nearly 500 of them. They cost $24.90 plus tax. You can find them at many of your local retailers, Fleet Farm, Target, Radio Shack. They have them as well. You might pay about $5 more. We sell them at cost. We're not there to make a dollar. We're there about making sure that every home can have one. But we have about 15 left. I have not ordered any because the sales have slowed quite a bit. We have to order them in lots of 140, and I'm not sure I want to take on that right now. But there's plenty of retailers in Winnebago County that sell them.
How do they work? I mean, it's just you turn them on and there's no sound?
Right. You do turn them on, and they're pretty self-programmable now. You press a few buttons, and it detects what the nearest tower is and the best frequency for you. And they will automatically alert. You don't have to set it to just alert for tornado warnings or watches or whatever. They're already pre-programmed for that. You just have to make sure you have the right frequency when you plug them in. It's a step-by-step process that just walks you right through it. If you ever have anyone that wants to know a weather radio programmed, we'll be happy to do it for you in our office. Just have them call Sue Verway, and she'll make sure that we get it programmed for your citizens.
So you can turn it on and just go to sleep as normal, and this thing will wake you up from your sleep if there's...
It has.
Okay.
You have one, don't you? Did it wake you up yet?
It keeps going, Noah's weather, Noah's weather.
Yes, I know Chuck Orenstein, too, has said, that thing works. It'll alarm you, that's for sure.
Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my understanding at the Health Board meeting on Friday that they are meeting with Country USA and the Rock USA people for plans for any emergency if emergency weather happens out there. I guess my question, Linda, is do you meet with other large groups, events, EAA, whatever, and is there any way that maybe you could require that these groups have a plan in place that when emergency or when severe weather happens that it's already in place, you don't have to, not all of a sudden have to act?
We do collaborate with all the large events in Winnebago County, Country USA, Rock USA, EAA, Life Fest. We do have a process in place. We do want them to have an emergency plan. Unfortunately, we don't have a large event ordinance that requires them, but the Sheriff's Department works really well with all those events, and then they always help me get my information through to them. We did just host a meeting last week with Country USA, our hospitals, EMS, and Public Health was at the meeting, and we discussed severe weather procedures for an event like Country USA. Unfortunately, there are no hard shelters out there. There's no place to go. So being aware of the weather approaching is their best line of defense, and that is, whether you have a smartphone or following the weather. When you get up in the morning, check the weather, what the forecast is, and watch the skies, and hopefully the large events will give the attendees enough notice to make an informed decision. I better get out of here and better take shelter. If time does not permit, the National Weather Service and Red Cross has put out a statement that if you cannot get into a sturdy shelter, that you should go into your vehicle, buckle in, duck under the dash. If your vehicle does get lifted, hopefully the airbags will deploy once the vehicle lands. It's either that or you go into a ditch, and there aren't a lot of ditches out at Country USA for that many people as well. So people need to take responsibility for their own lives. We have a portable tornado siren that is out there for those events to warn the campers. They have procedures in place. They will make stage announcements, but a lot of people like to have fun at those events, and sometimes it's hard to get them to step away from listening to the music and having fun. So the responsibility is really up to them to take care of themselves.
Linda, can you answer me, do many counties in the state have what you just asked or stated, a large event policy? Do many counties have that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Supervisor Smith.
Yes, Linda. Probably one of the reasons why you're seeing a reduced interest in the sales of the NOAA weather radio is most of the cell phones now, the Android and iPhone types, have an app on it for NOAA weather radio.
Yes, the Red Cross has free apps, if you aren't aware of them, to tell you if you're in a flood warning, a severe thunderstorm warning, tornado warning. So again, it's a free app to download if you have a smartphone.
Okay, thank you. It was very informative. At this time, I'd like to ask Alan Davis to come up. He's the Community Development Director for the City of Oshkosh. He'll be giving us an update on the airport park property that we purchased last year, on how the city's starting to develop their side of it.
Hello, I have some diagrams to distribute. I want to make sure everybody has one before I launch into my presentation. As Mr. Albrecht mentioned, my name is Alan Davis, the Community Development Director with the City of Oshkosh. I'm just one person who's on a much larger team that's working on this aviation business park, but I'll at least be able to give you the overview and maybe some of the specifics that I'm aware of. If everybody has a copy of the aviation business park presentation, the map on the first page kind of shows you where that aviation business park is located. Not everybody has seen a good map of this location. As you can see, Whitman Regional Airport on the south side of Oshkosh has Land that's highlighted in red, that would be the Aviation Business Park. It's right at the end of the taxiway, there at the southeast corner of the airport. It's also relatively close to 41 and Highway 26, and we expect that'll be a connection someday as the city slowly grows to the south. On the next page, I also wanted to highlight what we had planned for that neighborhood. The colors mean different types of land uses. The Whitman Regional Airport there is in the green. The gray means that's always been planned as a industrial use, and the yellow is residential, so we know we're going to have some residential beside the industrial. And we had some good comments from some of the property owners in that neighborhood already when we were putting these plans together, and I'll explain what we mean by that. But as time goes by, we expect the industrial to grow further south and the residential to grow further south as well. I have a blow-up on the bottom of page 2 that shows some of the schematics that we have for the 80 acres. As you can see, we have a road that goes down kind of in the center that wiggles around some low-lying spots. We also have a taxiway that's proposed that comes off the Whitman Regional Airport on the west side. That's the side that the county owns, and the county will be able to lease to manufacturers that are aviation-related. On the east side, where the city owns, the first spot where we've kind of set aside for the proposed UW Oshkosh Accelerator. That's a new program that they're developing this year that will help entrepreneurs launch their businesses, and they'll have both an aviation and a general business entrepreneur program twice a year that'll spur more development in Winnebago County. We've also included some berms and some landscaping to help buffer our development from some of the existing residential in that neighborhood. And we'll, of course, take care of all the streets, the sewer, and the water, and the storm sewer that's required for this type of development. On page 3 is kind of a summary of the partners at this point for this project. Of course, Winnebago County with the land purchase and your operation and maintenance of the airport as the reason this exists. City of Oshkosh is working on the land and the infrastructure, as I've kind of summarized. Chamco is helping us with the marketing. East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission actually had to incorporate this project into the regional overall economic development program, and that made us eligible for some grants. And the follow-up there was the Economic Development Administration granted Winnebago County and the city $2 million late last year to help pay for the infrastructure improvements that we're going to be making there. The Department of Defense also likes this project and gave us some $211,000 to help us develop a marketing program for the aviation, the aerospace cluster that we've identified as a really good fit for Winnebago County and Whitman Airport specifically. UW Oshkosh is working very hard on the accelerator program with their Business Success Center. So they're going to be a major partner in developing some of these businesses that will be locating in the Aviation Business Park. And lastly, I've heard from Airport Manager Peter Mull that Wisconsin DOT has given approval for that taxiway construction to take place in the future. So all the pieces are coming together, we believe, at this point in time to serve Winnebago County and the airport. On my last little slide there on the bottom of page 3 is the Aviation Business Park timeline. The design and engineering is underway right now for the improvements. We'll have that done this summer and be able to bid that out. We're expecting to have a groundbreaking here at EAA AirVenture in 2014. We'll be working with EAA and the Aviation Committee to help let everybody know, not only the attendees, but also some of the manufacturers that are at EAA, so let them know that this is an opportunity for them. The construction of the street, sewer, water, storm sewer, the berms, that'll all be done by the end of 2015, next year. And the taxiway construction is tentatively scheduled for 2016. And last but not least, UW Oshkosh Accelerator is also targeting constructing their facility in 2016. But that's the one that's kind of on the farthest out right now that they still have to put some funding together. And with that, that's the end of my prepared remarks. I wanted to make sure you saw the nice pictures that we've developed to this point and give you an idea where things are headed. A lot of people really like this project, and we're moving ahead as quickly as possible and working closely with the county to make this all happen.
Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. On this one slide, you have grants from East Central RPC, $2 million from Economic Development Administration. You've already explained where the $211,000 grant from DOD is going to, what that's going to go for. How is the $2 million from the Economic Development Administration going to be used?
That money will be paying for streets, sewer, water, and storm sewer. It'll be matching from the city. The city is putting about $2.6 million into the infrastructure. EDA is contributing $2 million towards that.
Okay, now, there are a lot of entities involved in getting this thing together, and it'll be a real nice addition to the airport when it's completed. But the one fundamental question is, which of any of these entities is going to be responsible for recruiting people to open business there?
I think there's a combination, and I can't give you a specific answer right now. It's going to be a combination of CHAMCO, the county, the city. There's even a new organization called GoEDC that's looking at doing more marketing for the county.
But it sounds like nobody's overseeing this.
The best I can tell you right now is that we already have that marketing committee at the aviation committee level working on it for this summer, but for the EAA groundbreaking, they're already working on that piece, and they're working, I think the individual's name is Mr. Bob Mark from
yeah, I know who he is, yes.
I believe he's responsible for putting that marketing together for this summer. Long term, it could be CHAMCO, it could be a combination of the city or the county. We're still working on those details. I think the aerospace marketing study is going to tell us what the best combination is going to be, because we certainly don't have anything specifically set up just for the airport at this time.
So you're saying that the aerospace cluster study ought to reveal which types of companies would be most suited to recruit?
Absolutely. In fact, they're also contracted to start recruiting them for the aviation business park.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Davis. Mm-hmm. We went in and purchased the property, was that about a year ago?
Yes.
Could you give us an update? Have there been any jobs created out there to this point?
No. Right now it's still a vacant field.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Ellen, there are no more questions. Thank you. It was
You're welcome.
informative. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Mike Elder, the Facilities and Property Management Director, to come up. He'll give us a report on his roof maintenance program.
Good evening. Unfortunately, most of my presentation is not going to be as interesting as the last two. It might be quicker. You all should have gotten a packet showing our roof replacement program. And what this is it's a program that we started about 10 years ago to have a planned and organized method of replacing or repairing the roofs on our buildings in the county. And we're at this point now where another group of buildings are up for roof replacements, and this is a presentation to acquaint you with it so that we can move forward with the capital project, appropriate the funding, get the design work done, and get the roofs replaced before we incur any significant damage. The three roofs that we're looking at this year are buildings number 2 and 3 at our Knapp Street maintenance facility, and the roof of the old boiler house at Parkview. Building number 2 was built in 1952. It was part of the highway department before it was passed down and became our maintenance facility. We have no record of the age of the roof that's on it right now, so we're going to make an assumption that it was replaced maybe once, but it could very well be the original. What we're seeing right now is it's probably the original roof. Building number 3 was built in 1960, and this roof appears to be original also. We have no records of that roof being replaced. In 2004, we had a significant windstorm in Oshkosh, and we actually blew off sections of the roofs. And these roofs are basically, it's a fully adhered rubber membrane, and the glue and the rubber gets deteriorated from the ultraviolet lights, from the sun, from the weather, and the wind just caused it to pick up and become a flapping membrane in the wind, and then ended up getting blown off and torn off the roof. We patched the roofs as best we could back in 2004. We're continually patching the roofs now, but it's getting to the point where we no longer can just patch the roof. So it's time to replace them, to do it as an organized method. We want to keep these buildings. They're being used right now. One of the buildings number 2, is used for some of our records retention for the district attorney's office. Building number 3 is currently being used as a storage location for the Veterans Museum. They look to have a significant life left in the buildings with the normal upkeep that we have to do. The third roof we've got is the boiler house at Parkview. It's no longer being used as a boiler house. It's got all of the equipment that we use for maintaining the grounds out there. When we built the new Parkview, we specifically excluded a majority of the space that we needed for maintenance because we had these buildings already out there. And we didn't need to incur additional cost by making Parkview larger to try and consolidate all of our equipment and workspace inside the new building when we had suitable space outside of it. This roof we do know is original, and it's beginning to leak. It's they call it a built-up roof. Basically what it is it's 4 layers of felt covered with tar, and the final layer is basically a tar layer with gravel put down, so it actually looks like a paved road up there. It's a very durable roof. They usually go 40 to 50 years before you really have to do any kind of major replacement, and that's about where this building and its roof is. What we are doing right now is we are scrapping out all the extra equipment that was in there. When we built the new Parkview became self-sufficient. The new building became self-sufficient. The old Parkview complex had what was called a campus heating system. So we had 4 boilers in this building. We had an air conditioning plant. We had water treatment systems in there. All of that is in the process of being scrapped out and salvaged out so that the building will be emptied and be available for use for part of it is going to be used for our lawn equipment storage and work space. The other part is when we tore down the old Parkview, we lost a garage. This could potentially be used to house the vehicles that Parkview has that really should be kept in a garage. If you take a look, you can kind of see I've got some pictures in your packet. You can see where the sections of the roof have blown off. The silver-colored roof is the original roof. The black-colored roof is the areas that we've patched and tarred and tried to recover. You can kind of see where the roof is deteriorated around some of the skylights. Some of the soffit material is deteriorating. It's wood. It's a wood roof underneath the rubber membrane. So the wood is 60, 50 years old. We're going to need to replace the soffit material in some areas where it's deteriorated. We'll need to reseal around the skylights. On building number 3, we've got a number of penetrations from the old equipment that are just ways for water to get inside the building. So since we no longer have the equipment, like the boilers venting through the roof or the cooling tower needing to send the water through the roof to the chiller plant. We need to get rid of those penetrations and just clean off the roof and make it a nice finished roof. Once again, like I said, we're trying to have a scheduled plan for replacing the roofs. These 3 buildings are the next ones in line. After that, we'll be looking at the next oldest building would be the Work Release Center. That is currently not being used for much of anything, but it's still a facility that we have and we're maintaining. That roof is coming up on close to 25 years by the time we get to that point. That one is another fully adhered rubber membrane roof that has reached the end of its life. So as we get done with these roofs, they're going in cycles, and probably in the next 10 years, we'll finish off all the buildings we've got, and then we'll be good for a number of years, maybe 10 years, and then we'll have to start over again with replacing some of the roofs that we've got on our buildings. And that's pretty much it for the roof replacement program.
Supervisor Warnke.
Mike, as you know, we're talking about getting a new administration building out at the airport. You haven't talked about the condition of the roof, but could you give us an estimate of what it would cost to repair it and what kind of condition that it's in?
The roof for the terminal administration building at the airport right now, that is really was going to be the next roof. And actually, for the last 2 years, it's been the next roof that we've been trying to replace. But we got into a situation when we had the old Parkview where the roofs needed to be replaced. They were leaking. We put new roofs on it. Then within 5 years, we ended up building a new Parkview. I didn't want to do that with the airport. So that one has been delayed. But that roof is probably the worst roof that we have in the county. If you go up and walk on it, you can definitely feel where the leaks are in the roof. With the winter that we had, you could be walking along and the roof feels, I guess you'll call it pliable. All of a sudden you'd hit something that was rock hard, and what that was all the water that was trapped beneath the rubber membrane and the steel decking had frozen solid. So what happens with that is water's getting into the building, it's rusting out the underdeck. In the winter it's freezing, and so it's reducing any kind of R value that we have with the roof, so it's causing us to spend more for utilities to heat the building. We've patched it as best we can. There's areas where it's just gotten to the point where we can't really patch it, and if a good breeze comes along, you can just watch it undulate in the wind. It looks like, you know, you're at the beach and you're seeing waves with the rubber. We've gotten rough estimates without going out for bids that it's probably going to cost between, I'm going to say, $750,000 to $1 million to do the roof. The unique situation with that building is, if you take a look at the terminal building, you'll see there's like a sheet metal facade. In order to replace the roof, we basically have to take off all the sheet metal. And that, once we take it off, talking to the sheet metal people that would be responsible for taking it off and putting it back on, they said you're further ahead to just replace it because you're going to damage it to a point where it's really not going to look right, nor is it really going to fit back together again when we have to put it back up. So that's why this is such an expensive roof. And we've gotten estimates between $750,000 to $1 million.
Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Elder, at some of these other roofs and projects, not these because they're fairly flat, but a 312 pitch or more, have you looked into replacing those roofs with steel roofing?
Steel roofing would end up being a sloped roof. And what happens, in order to have the correct pitch and the wind loading considerations and all with that, we would end up with a roof that would probably be about 2 stories tall. And that's why when you have buildings that are so wide, that's why They're called flat, but they're not really flat. They still have a pitch to them. They still drain right. But it would require us to build a whole structure on top of the roof to hold the metal roof up. It's not just a...
Well, no, excuse me, Mr. Elder, yeah, I wasn't referring to these, but we have other buildings, within the county that do have slope roofs, 312 or more pitch.
We would look at metal. Usually what we look at is what is the most cost-effective and maintenance-free roofing system. And we haven't had, like the Coughlin Center.
Yeah.
It was built in 1998, so we're coming up on almost 20 years on a shingled roof. When that becomes time to replace, probably in another 5 to 10 years, we'll probably look at a standing seam metal roof. But those all have their own maintenance issues too.
Yeah, it was just something I was reading on the metal roofs in long term, that they're more cost effective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Supervisor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the Knapp Street buildings,
yes.
What is the life expectancy of those buildings?
Well, if we keep maintaining them, it could be 20, 30, 40 more years. If we don't maintain them, then you've seen what happens to the buildings when we don't maintain them. There is some tuck pointing that we're going to need to be doing to them, but once we get the roofs on and the tuck pointing done, general maintenance, they could go another 50 years.
And they're generally good on energy? They're not...
We are very stingy with the energy. We turn the heat off, when we don't need it, because the heating units have their standing pilot ones, so we're so stingy with it, we don't even want to waste the gas during the summer when we don't need it. And we set the thermostats down to 55. If we don't need to have anything in there that has to stay warm because of freezing, then we turn the heat off completely. So yeah, they're pretty good on energy.
In regards to the roofing projects in general, is there necessarily a fund that we fund as a county board that helps keep up with these roof projects, or are they all capital bond issues?
They're all capital bond issues. So every time I have a roof or several roofs that exceed our capital project threshold, then I come before you guys to get authorization for the project and then authorization to appropriate the funds.
Sure. Do you think it'd be a good idea to start some type of a fund like that? I mean, if for technology we have a fund like that where, we can dip into it to get new computers or phone systems like we've been doing, is that something that we should contemplate?
I would say yes. I don't know how the technology fund works. If it would preclude me having to come before you all the time asking for money, then I'd say without a doubt, let's go that way. If I still have to come before you for the project authorization and the authority to spend the money, it's probably a horse apiece, yeah.
Thank you.
Supervisor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, on your presentation here, on your program, justification and alternatives considered, you basically point this out very clearly. The first is the current practice of having roofs fail without warning and causing other collateral damage due to water and weather intrusion. That is what's currently going on?
We've had that. We had that at Parkview.
Okay, so you've never had a roof replacement schedule before?
I have a roof replacement schedule. I don't always get approval to move ahead and do the roofs.
Is this schedule that you have now from 2014 to 2017 part of our capital improvement plan?
Yes.
Okay. It concerns me that you have a practice of having roofs fail without warning and no planning to look at repairing those when in fact you're the one person in the county that knows which roofs need to be repaired when.
Correct.
And it would behoove us then to make sure that you do have, and we do approve a schedule for you so that you don't get into this oh my gosh, this roof's leaking. I knew it was going to leak 5 years ago. Here it is. We don't have funding for it. We got to patch everything together, and who knows what happens. So I think it would be well to have this roof replacement schedule in place so that you know going forward that you'll be pretty confident that we would be able to move forward with this. So thank you.
Supervisor Hamlin.
Thank you. Mike, with roofs lasting 50 years, is now the time to look at possibly putting some type of solar energy, or is it still not cost effective?
I've been watching the solar energy and the alternative energy pretty well. We're looking at between a 15 to a 16-year payback with the solar systems that we're putting on. And that, I don't know if that is fast enough for us to actually go ahead with it right now. It's kind of hard for me to justify spending, maybe $75,000 to $100,000 for a solar energy project that will take us, could be 20 years to recover the costs on it. If natural gas and some of the utilities that we've got reverse their trend of increasing every year and just even hold steady, then it could extend our payback period. I would like to, yes. When we put the new roofs on, put in provisions to put on at least, thermal solar. What I'd like to do is have passive solar heating, because I'm digressing now. In the buildings that we have air conditioned, basically what you do is you take your air conditioning down to about 50, 55 degrees so that you can get the humidity out of it. Then you have to reheat the air back up to a comfortable temperature, or you freeze everybody out. So basically, on all of our buildings that we have air conditioning, we also are running the boilers 12 months out of the year. If we could do a passive solar heating system where we could heat the water up to about 120 degrees, we could reheat the air without using the natural gas. So yes, I would like to do that. But we're talking about a 16 to 20-year payback for those kind of systems. And I haven't felt comfortable enough to come forward with that to say that it's a good deal yet.
The grants have all run out, or are they?
Most of the grants that we get, they're not really grants, they're tax incentives. And since we don't pay taxes, we have no benefit from them. So we did do 2 energy projects that used a grant. One, we got energy efficient rooftop units for the Expo Center, and we put in what's called an absorption chiller at the jail. And we used, it was the Energy Efficiency Block Grant. Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant as part of the American Recovery Act that President Obama passed 4 years ago. So we got about half of the cost of our projects to reimburse through those grants. But I try and watch for all the grants that we can, and most of the stuff that is out there right now is mostly tax incentives.
Supervisor Robel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, for your information, I don't know if you know or not, but the highway complex was built, the front part of that building was built in the later 70s, where the offices are, and the shop part and the storage, that was built right around in the middle 1940s. Very
Right.
similar. The city garage was very similar to the old highway garage, and that was built in 46, so I remember when that was built.
I wasn't here.
Okay, tuck pointing.
The next project I've got for you is related to the jail, and I call it the jail precast panel joint sealant repairs. The jail was built in 2003, and it is a precast concrete exterior building, which means that there's actually 20-foot-long concrete slabs that they poured and horizontally, and then when we built the building, we tipped them up and it formed the outside wall. It's basically the siding of the building. Rather than having bricks, we have a concrete slab. And each slab is about 10 feet wide. Between each of those slabs is a caulk joint. And the caulk joints are now all failing. And there's some areas where the caulk is actually cracked wide open, and you can actually put your hand in up to your knuckles. We're not getting water into the building yet, fortunately, because there's it's called baccarod in the joint, and that's what the caulk goes into so that you don't have to fill the whole joint with caulk. When we build buildings, we go out for bid, and we're all happy when we get the low bids. When you get the low bids, you get what you pay for. The caulk was good for 10 years. It's now 2013, so we got 13 years out of the caulk. We did pretty good. The original contractor is no longer in business, so we can't really go back to him and say, you know, we think maybe there was some workmanship with this, but it's really hard to prove at this point because the concrete cures for a number of years, and what started as maybe a half-inch gap between the slabs, as the concrete cures and shrinks, it's now 3/4 of an inch to an inch. The way we have to fix it is we have to get all the old caulk out, all the old backing rod, and then we have to grind the two surfaces on the concrete surface, on the concrete slabs clean so that the caulk will have a clean surface to adhere to. And what we would be doing now is going back and putting in new backer rod, new caulk. The caulk now that we've got 13 years later, we can probably get something that at least has a guarantee of not failing for 10 years, but an understanding from the manufacturer that it probably won't do this for maybe 20 years. So as you can see in some of the pictures I've got, it's just the ultraviolet lights, the weathering, the shrinking of the slabs, causing it to stretch past the point that it can stretch and return, has all caused the caulk to tear now. And this would be basically what you call general maintenance. But because we have like 50,000 linear feet of caulk joints on the building, the cost puts it over our operational budget limits and puts it into the capital project threshold. So I'm here before you asking for consideration of this project so that we can reseal the jail building and hopefully get at least 10 to 15 years out of the new caulk and more than likely get 20 years out of it.
What's your estimate on that?
Our estimate on that's about, I think I've got about $198,000, $200,000 for it.
Supervisor Finch.
Chairman, the guy is no longer in business, you said. Did he sell the business or did it just go defunct?
Just went out. It was
so
like,
nobody has the business that he had operated?
No.
Okay. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Supervisor Turner.
You said something about the backer rod needs to be replaced. Why is that?
Because the gap's gotten too big for the backer rod. Usually you want the backer rod to have a press fit between the two slabs. So right now there's actually air gaps between the backer rod, so the backer rod really, it won't hold the caulk. If you caulk and you push it in, the backer rod will just keep going further in, and then you won't get the right symmetry or the geometric form for the caulk.
Okay, and then the backer rod that's taken out, will we be able to recoup some costs from that as far as?
No, that's garbage, because the caulk will have adhered to it. We can't get it off. It's just closed cell polystyrene type backer rod.
Okay.
Supervisor Konitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Hamlin touched on solar energy. Do we have a facility and the room to go into the geotherm heating and cooling?
we actually looked at that, building the new jail. And what we found out is that because of the way the glaciers came through the Winnebago area, the granite is way close to the surface. Usually if we do geothermal, you're usually sinking wells down 60 to 100 feet to circulate the water. And what we found was that it would have been cost prohibitive to do that. That's a water-to-air type heat pump system. We do look at that wherever we can incorporate alternative energy systems, but it hasn't proven cost-effective for us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the appointments that the county executive had put forward. Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After talking with you, and I just talked with the county exec, I'd make a motion to approve all his appointments in one swing.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Supervisor Robel.
Are you all finished?
Yep. They approved them all already.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that we adjourn until Tuesday, May 20th at 6 p.m.
No, we are adjourned until our county board tour, Monday the 19th.
Yeah,
so
that's right,
remember,
yeah.
our county board tour is going to be on Monday the 19th, and I hope that you all can come.
Yeah.
So, okay, we are adjourned.